The Maple Leafs prospect pool gets a harsh ranking from a prominent prospects analyst, but was it warranted? We'll discuss that and former Leafs netminder Jonathan Bernier hanging up the goalie pads. All that and more on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome into today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast that you can find wherever you watch or listen to your podcasts. If you're one of our everydayers, you already know this. If you're new to the show, I'm Mike DiStefano and my co-host Dave Morassutti. We're hosts here at Locked On Leafs, and this episode is brought to you by Birddogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL or enter promo code LockedOnNHL for a free white tech hat with any order. You won't want to take them off, your bird dogs off. We promise you. Visit birddogs.com. All right, Dave, we got a couple things we got to get into on today's podcast. Corey Prottman dropped his Leafs prospect pool ranking today, so we're going to get into that. A little bit of controversy stirring up Leafs Twitter, so we'll discuss that. Jonathan Bernier, former Leafs goaltender, announced his retirement from hockey, so we'll touch on that as well. But first and foremost, we were kind of talking about this last week, how Edge did that collaboration with the Maple Leafs because they were coming to Toronto, and you happened to be there. You ended up getting tickets, and you went to SmackDown this past weekend, where Leaf fanatic and WWE superstar Edge now announced that it's likely to be his final match in front of his home crowd. Toronto, what was the experience like, man? Talk about the get-up, too, that he was rocking. A little homage to his beloved Maple Leafs.
Yeah, it was pretty much blue and white day at Scotiabank there. And the merchandise line was predictably long.
How many of the Leaf Edge collabs were sold that night? I would imagine like almost every other person probably had that shirt.
Yeah, there was quite a few people even wearing them like during the event. They had a different type of Edge shirt too. Like they had the collab one, they had a different one as well to kind of commemorate the 25 years of him being in WWE. And it's weird because we didn't get to see it in person, but they showed a video of him receiving a special Edge commemorative belt that WWE made for him. That was like, I thought that was pretty cool when you get your own title belt. We talked about potentially getting a title belt for the show. Still looking into that. Those are not easy to, they don't just, can't just walk into a store and say, hey, I want a Leafs WWE title belt. Yeah, so that was pretty cool. But it was, you know what? He had obviously the biggest pop of the night from the crowd. Like that was a loud crowd. I've been to a lot of events at Scotiabank, concerts, hockey games, basketball games, just whatever you can think of, and that was up there among the top crowds I've heard.
I got a question for you, because I saw there was some controversy online that they may have fed a little bit of crowd noise into the background. Do you think that's true, or was that place loud and rocking when the Metalingus tune hit there?
No, that place was loud. I'll say this. The first instance was when LA Knight came out. If you're a wrestling fan, LA Knight's kind of like the rising star.
Yeah.
And like you can't fake what the crowd was doing because they were kind of throwing in things that WWE can't just pipe in whenever they feel like, because it just wouldn't work.
Yeah.
So, like that. Every time, like there was a time where he was hitting a guy off the announce table and he kept saying, yeah, like crowd kept chanting, yeah. I don't know if WWE would have been able to pull that off, piping that in. The Edge one, I mean, that was loud. Like
I'd imagine so.
What they did, and it was smart on them, was they kind of kept everyone waiting. Like they didn't make it a predictable time when he was going to come out for his entrance. So when it happened, it people kind of startled the crowd a little bit, so they got them going. It was huge pyro at the end too, which I did not expect. Like I know when the fireworks are going to come out for his entrance, and then they did it at the end, and I was like, almost fell out of my damn seat.
Yeah, well, they had it like I watched. I only watched the final fight, like just because whatever. I knew that it was kind of be something cool when I saw online that he was wrestling and whatnot. So I just tossed it on, and yeah, it looked cool. Like there was the way that they showed him and in the background all the pyro, and then they like fade to black, and that was it for the show, right? So and then there was the off air antics that happened. He spoke to the crowd at Scotiabank Arena, and then like I saw it, like Sami Zayn and KO and Drew McIntyre randomly also came out and they spoke.
Oh, it was a great match. It was like they call it the dark match, right? The match after they go off air, and Edge made an appearance in that too. Spear.
Oh, that would happen?
Yeah, he came. So there was like a moment in the match where guy's gonna hit Kevin Owens with the chair. Edge comes out of nowhere, gets a huge crowd reception. And spears. I can't remember which guy he ended up spearing, and like that just got the crowd crazy. Like again, people were talking about piped in crowd noise. I experienced it when they were off air, and like it was loud still.
Yeah. No, it looked like it was a pretty cool event. Glad that you were able to go. The way that we can tie this back to hockey and back into the Maple Leafs, for those who hopefully are sticking through the wrestling talk till we get back to the Leafs, is since that night, I have seen major discourse online about the Maple Leafs and how they should, like, I don't know if it's to honor Edge or to do, just because, but there's been a big push, I would say, from a section of like wrestling / Leafs Twitter who are trying to get Edge's theme song to be the new goal song for the Maple Leafs. Are you seeing this discourse out there online? Like, what do you think of it?
Oh, our buddy James from Offside Hockey has been a fan of the show as well. I got tagged in one of his posts asking kind of thoughts on it. And then our good friend Jose, who's a huge wrestling fan, I like the Edge theme song. Should also say what the actual name of the song is, which I forget off the top of my head.
Metalingus?
Yes, thank you. Metalingus by Alter Bridge. He put it because the video initially was tagged. I'll say it was a good attempt. It's always tough to overdub it off a video that has a song. Like it was a tough edit, but it was pretty good. So he made his own edit. Unfortunately, we can't share it on the show because YouTube will flag that as copyright. So I'll link it in the description. So if you want to get an idea of what it sounds like, and like when you think of doing goal songs, it has to have some meaning. Edge's connection with the Leafs is apparent. It's always like they gave him a Leafs gift bag of like goodies and stuff in that event.
Dude, here's the thing, like I think that'd be cool. Like it's a good song. It's catchy.
And it's a great song too.
It is very catchy. And again, like we unfortunately can't play it for copyright reasons, like Dave said. So like it's called Metalingus Edge theme song. If you're curious, go check it out on YouTube. Or again, we're gonna post it in the notes section, or maybe put a little pop up or something that you can go and check it out. But it's like very catchy song, and you can easily understand and learn the words. And it's almost like I could sense a situation where, everyone's kind of singing along to the song and then it goes quiet, but then everyone keeps going for like 10 seconds into the play after the puck is dropped. Remember how cool that looked for the Colorado Avalanche in the playoff run when they did the Blink 182 song, right? All the small things. I've always kind of wanted Toronto to have something like that. If you do Metalingus as a goal song, I mean, people know the words enough, or they'll figure it out enough, where they can continue to sing it throughout the first 10 or so seconds of gameplay after the puck is dropped to score the goal. So that would kind of be cool. I would like to see that happen. But just in general, like we're going into a new era of the Maple Leafs, right? Out is Kyle Dubas, in comes Brad Treliving. I hope to God we get a new goal song. Like that has to be it now, right? Like Brendan Shanahan, he's completely changed, the direction of this team, and he's changed the thought process of what he thought was going to work with Kyle Dubas. Clearly, he said no. We need someone else in charge. I'm hoping that with this change, also we could get a new freaking goal song, man. Like whether it's Metalingus or it's something else, I don't really care. As long as it's not Hall & Oates. I think a lot of people are done with it. Like, I don't hate the song. Don't get me wrong. I think it's cool. It's groovy. I do kind of dance to it, and it does get people up and bopping around. But, like, it's time for something new. For going into a new era of the Maple Leafs under Brad Treliving, let's also get a new goal song as well.
Like, I'm envious of teams like the Rangers and Chicago who have, like, historic, like, their songs get their crowds going.
Yeah.
Like, that gets me.
Yeah.
Chelsea Dagger, and then the Rangers. Oh, hey. Like, I love that. The crowd's all into it. It's all about building the atmosphere at a game. A goal song should do that, especially even in football. Like, some football teams have, a fight. Like, the Eagles have their song, which I hate because I'm a Cowboys fan. I hate the Eagles, but
Well, the Bills shout.
Yeah,
right?
Bills, you make me want to shout. Yeah.
Whenever I'm at a wedding and like no one does the "Let's Go Buffalo" part of the song, it weirds me out. It weirds me out, right? We go hey, hey, and then no one does the "Let's Go Buffalo." I hate when no one does it at a wedding because I'm always doing it and no one's coming with me. I'm like, clearly there's not enough sports fans or Bills fans around here to understand what's going on. But
it just speaks to like how dreadful the Hall & Oates song has been, because it just, people are tired of it. It's not like you're at a hockey game, you got to get the crowd going. I get it, it's catchy, but it doesn't get me going at a game anymore. It kind of just feels, I'm trying to figure out the right way to explain it. It's cheesy. I'll give it, that's probably the best way to describe it. It feels cheesy. There's better options. Even if you don't want to go with the Edge theme song, there are way better options than Hall & Oates. I'm a big Van Halen guy. If they can get Van Halen in there, whew, I would love that.
So I'm thinking, Dave, in September through training camp, we put together some kind of like March Madness-esque like bracket, and we'll have the listeners of the show kind of vote on songs until we come up with a winner. And this would be like what we believe, us as the Locked On Leafs family, this is what we have chosen to be this year's new goal song. And then we could try and have a push for that to be the goal song this season. So maybe we could do something like that through training camp, a fun little exercise where everyone can vote. We'll put 2 songs against each other. We'll have like a Sweet 16 type bracket like you do in the playoffs. And then, we'll spend a week and see who can win, or a couple weeks and see who can, which song we can decide would be best for the Maple Leafs new goal song. We'll have to put Metalingus in there. We'll definitely put it in there. And hey, if you guys have any suggestions below to what you think would be a cool song to do for the next new goal song, I guess, for the Maple Leafs, put in the comment section down below. I've been very, very hard on the DMX train up in here. Wouldn't mind if that were to be the goal song. I think that's another one that people can tag along in, and it'd be a lot of fun. But there's a lot of good options out there that I've heard. Where a lot of people are emotionally charged in wanting a new song, and everyone's got their own opinion. So let us know in the comment section down below, or reach out to us on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck for myself, at D_Morassutti for Dave, or the show Twitter as well, at Locked On Leafs. So more details to come on that in the coming weeks. So make sure you keep returning here to Locked On Leafs to figure out what we're going to do for that. But that sounds like something fun that we could do interactive with the good listeners of the Locked On Leafs pod. That being said, Dave, we'll take one quick break. When we get back, let's chat about former Maple Leafs goaltender Jonathan Bernier calling it a career, and the Leafs prospect ranking got a slap in the face from Corey Pronman. We'll tell you where they ranked amongst the league's 32 teams in a little bit. But first, Dave, tell the good folks about one of today's sponsors.
Yes, today's show is brought to you by AG1 by Athletic Greens. Keeping up with your nutrition is really hard. You're busy. You're stuck at your desk. You're eating whatever you can just to get through the day. But what if you could start your day with the ultimate daily nutrition? All great athletes have one thing in common. They take care of their bodies. Huge part of that starts with optimizing whole body health. A lot of them also drink AG1, and that's why I'm a huge fan. With every daily serving, I'm setting myself for success with 75 high-quality ingredients that give me key daily nutrients and support energy, focus, strength, and clarity. It's a microhabit that delivers macro benefits and helps just about everybody take care of their health every day. If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/NHL network. That's drinkag1.com/NHL network. Check it out today.
Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. We are a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast. We'll be back to daily come training camp, just 3 days a week for the next few weeks here through the offseason. Well, there's not a whole lot going on, but we did get some news today. So somewhat news. Jonathan Bernier, former Maple Leafs goaltender, decided to call it a career. Played 14 years in the National Hockey League, 3 of which spent with the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's a former number 11 pick in the 2006 NHL entry draft by the LA Kings. So he was a very highly regarded goaltending prospect once upon a time. Toronto, I don't know if you remember when they brought him in, a lot of Leaf fans thought, okay, this is the guy. This is going to be our number 1 goaltender for years. They traded for Raycroft. It didn't work. They traded for Toskala. It didn't work. Third time's the charm. Johnny Burns is going to be the savior in net for Toronto. Didn't quite turn out to be that way, did it, Dave?
Well, it was an interesting move at the time. Like, let's not forget, James Reimer had come on the scene, led the Leafs to the playoffs. That was the year that they lost to Boston in that unfortunate Game 7.
I don't recall. I don't recall what you're referring to, but we don't need to rehash it. It's okay.
If you like a reminder of what the Leafs traded to get Jonathan Bernier, it was Ben Scrivens, Matt Fradden, and the second-round draft pick. I do not remember what that draft pick ended up being. Knowing the Kings, it probably was a good draft pick that they made with it. But at the time, it sort of brought up this like idea of like who exactly would be the starter, because like Reimer was technically the starter. Bernier was coming in looking to be a starter because he was stuck behind some guy named Jonathan Quick, who was winning cups in LA, and like Bernier was viewed as the next guy, right? So I think the trade in hindsight was the right move. It just, in this market, it was really hard to figure out who was supposed to be number 1. Neither guy really could deal with like the pressure being the Leafs number 1. And I just remember Bernier, like, again, good idea, just didn't, the execution of that and how it all worked out. Wish it worked out a little better. Also, the team wasn't very good. Like he didn't exactly have a great supporting cast. Neither Reimer or Bernier really did in their tenure with the Leafs. So
no, it's not. It's not the modern day Leafs. That era of the Leafs, the Bernier and Reimer era, shaped this current era because they got a lot of high draft picks because they were awful for many years.
I'll say this: his first season was good with the Leafs. He played 55 games and he had a .922 save percentage.
His, like, if you look at his save percentage, he had a .915 save percentage through 3 years in Toronto. So 2 things: one, save percentages were kind of inflated a little bit more in that era. There were less goals. Like, we're talking, in the time where Jamie Benn won a Hart Trophy or won an Art Ross with like 86 points. Like, that was considered that was the pinnacle, in that era. So the save percentages were a little bit higher. I'll say that. So it looks better than maybe it is. That was about league average at the time, I believe. But at 281 goals against, he had 6 shutouts and had a record of 59, 68, and 17 overtime or shootout losses. So, a sub 500 goalie. Again, it wasn't all his fault. There wasn't a whole lot of talent, I would say, that was surrounded Jonathan Bernier, right? Like, they didn't put together terrific teams. And unfortunately, his game kind of suffered. And after a few years, they decided to move on from him. and they traded him. I think they only got like a conditional pick or something like that. It was like a low-level pick from Anaheim, and they moved him. Yeah, but did they bring Enroth back in that trade too, though, or was that a different trade?
No, I don't think that was the trade.
Okay, yeah, but yeah, but he hangs up the goalie pads. 403 games in his career. Ended up with 18 career shutouts split between a few teams. Most recently was with the New Jersey Devils. Didn't play last year due to injury. So his last time he did play was 21-22. Played 10 games with the Devils before getting hurt. So Jonathan Bernier calls it a career. Not that I want to bring it up, but like there's two things that I kind of remember Bernier for most, like his time with the Leafs at least. One was the preseason fight with Ryan Miller.
That was good.
I went back and I watched the fight today. That was a good tilt. Like, go back and watch this fight, Ryan Miller versus Jonathan Bernier. Bernier like fed Miller pretty good towards the end, and the refs let him go, which is cool to see. And he really got some licks into Ryan Miller. So you can check that out on YouTube if you want to see it. But then the other one, much more embarrassing situation for Johnny Bernier. Do you want to discuss it? Because I know you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Jonathan Bernier was invited to the Giants of Africa event that's hosted by Masai Ujiri, the president of the Raptors. And the event, was they were kind of just, I think at the time, like Nelson Mandela's name was, very prominent, especially, his connections with Ujiri and
yeah, I believe they were celebrating because I think it was like a year or two after his passing or something like that.
Yeah, they were remembering his life and things like that. And Jonathan Bernier was asked to give his thoughts about Nelson Mandela. And he is one of the most well-known athletes in the world and a lot of impact in any kind of sport that he did. Even playing hockey, everyone knows him. From being the type of person he was off the ice and on the ice, he changed a lot while he was with us. He's a tremendous guy. That's like, I'm reading that quote. Exactly. I think there's a video of it too, which
there is. I found it earlier today as well.
Look, and people were upset about the comments, thinking at first he thought, like, if you watch the video, like, he clearly didn't know who Mandela was. I don't think he was out of ignorance. I just think he didn't know. And look, usually when you have events like this, someone's got to coach these guys up. Hey, you might get asked about so and so. Here's some pointers of what you can say. Like, Jonathan Bernier was thrown under the bus in that situation.
That's true. I will say that. Somebody should have given him a Cole's notes like, hey, here, you're going to an event celebrating this guy, Nelson Mandela. Here's what he did. So if anyone asks, just basically say this. Like, just have a canned answer ready to go. And I'm gonna assume that didn't happen either.
Or like, do you know who Nelson Mandela is? Do you need a Cole's notes on this guy? Like,
yeah.
Talk about him.
Yeah, ultimately somebody dropped the ball there. Maybe he did get an email package sent to him and he just didn't read it. I don't know.
The worst part about that is whoever interviewed him. First off, there should have been a comms person that kind of said, let's not air this. Like, this is not right.
Yeah. There were follow-ups, though. Like, there were follow-ups to the question.
I know. But, like, the person doing the interview maybe should have realized, you know what? This is going to make this guy look bad. Let's, like, try to pick something else. Ask that question. Do that. I don't think this was live.
I can't recall if it was live or not. I mean, I don't think it was live. But yeah, you're right. Like, ultimately, you got to put a little bit of blame on the, reporter, the outlet that decided to air it. I mean, ultimately, they figured that this is going to get us a lot of clicks, which obviously it did, and to this day it still does. I bet you a lot of people ended up watching that clip today, to be honest with you, after hearing about Jonathan Bernier. It's one of the most known things. What he's known for, I would say, outside of his hockey career, would be this, right? So, unfortunate moment for Jonathan Bernier, but I think we can look back and laugh on it now. It was kind of awkward and cringy at the time, but I mean, I think it's been almost 10 years since that, like 8 years or something like that. Yeah, I think at this point, like he's not thinking about it the day he's retiring, but we still kind of remember it, and now we're just kind of laughing at the situation. I kind of were then too. But yeah, so congrats to Jonathan Bernier, 14 years in the NHL. Had a decent career, and now he hangs it up. So good luck in retirement, Burns. All right, coming up on the other side, Corey Pronman ranks the Leafs pretty low in his prospect rankings for the Athletic. We'll tell you exactly where they rank out of the 32 teams in the NHL and give you his top 6 rookies in the Leafs pipeline. We'll do that on the other side. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. You'll listen to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano. Got Dave Morassutti with me. And Dave, I was happy to see some Leafs-related news pop into my feed today on The Athletic. It's been very few and far between since we're in the middle of the off season. Not a whole lot of coverage coming from The Athletic these days. Come from really anywhere these days except Locked On Leafs, because we are here for you guys 365 even through the off season. You're welcome if you made it this far. But Corey Pronman, a very prominent prospects writer for The Athletic, wrote an article. He does his prospect rankings every single year, ranks all 32 pipelines around the NHL. And the Maple Leafs didn't get themselves a high grade this year. 27th. Ranked 27th out of 32 teams, the Leafs prospects. What are your thoughts on that?
No, yeah, obviously not great. I kind of understand why. Like, the Leafs haven't exactly been using their first round pick a lot, and usually the top end talent or the best prospects are usually picked in the first round, so that does severely impact that your prospect capital. But the one that got me when I was going through the list, only one defenseman was mentioned in this prospect report.
Yeah, there were 13 names that he had mentioned. So he ranked like his top 6. Then there were some honorable mentions that he believes might be NHLers. And yeah, you're right. Only one defenseman was mentioned out of in his mind, the top 13 prospects that the Maple Leafs have in their system, and that was Topi Niemelä, who he gave, who was their number 3 prospect, according to Corey Pronman. And even Niemelä, has his shortcomings, right? Like he's just another, undersized defenseman who can move the puck and isn't the greatest skater. And, he came out and said, like, yeah, he, could be a third pair guy, but doesn't expect for him to be a trailblazer by any means or a top end talent for this team's blue line. And that is a problem. And that's something that I believe this team's going to have to address at some point, get a little bit more star power on the back end. And the best way to do that, if you're not going to trade for it, obviously, is you got to draft it. And they got to start doing it. I'm surprised, though, that William Villeneuve didn't make the list. Like, I wonder if that was just a little bit of an oversight from Pronman, or if he legitimately just doesn't view Villeneuve as an NHL talent. Like we would have to ask him, but I would consider him a possibility, right? A guy who could be a 6th, 7th defenseman, at least, an NHL defenseman, get a sniff there. Probably could have fit in with the Hirvanens and the Moldenauers and Dverberg and Ty Voigt. Like he's in that range with all these other unranked honorable mentions. I was surprised that he wasn't put anywhere on this list. And, I'm curious as to why, I suppose.
Yeah, and it also just shows that the Leafs don't exactly have a lot of dynamic talent on the blue line. And just you hear a lot of the prospects kind of, small player, undersized. Like that's something that scouts always look at as like a good or bad thing for a player, right? And The Leafs, unfortunately, had a type, especially in the Kyle Dubas era. Kyle Dubas had a type when he went when he was looking at a draft. So, like that will kind of I think that also plays into how these rankings always shape out and how scouts feel about the Leafs prospect pool. And yeah, I mean, we'll see how that changes under Brad Living. Although the last draft, Easton Cowan wasn't exactly, earth-shattering size in a lot of ways. I think Chadwick, he's got some size to him at least.
Yeah. There was one. Yeah, he was a nice, sizable defenseman. But again, he's somebody who there's got to be a lot of development in his game for him to reach the NHL level, right? So there's clearly it lacks a lot of star power. Like Matthew Nyes is obviously their number one prospect and rated number one by Pronman, but there's a pretty sizable gap to the rest of the guys. Fraser Minton comes in at number 2. The aforementioned Niemela at number 3, Cowan at 4, Dennis Hildeby, the 6'5" tendy out of Sweden, comes in as the number 5 prospect. Potentially, he's coming overseas and he's going to play his first full season in North America. We'll see what he can do with the Marlies, I would imagine. And he actually has Nick Robertson at number 6. So Robertson continues to slide down prospect rankings, with all the injuries that he's accrued. So, there's some decent pieces there, but no one outside of Nyes that you scream and you say, oh, I can't wait for this guy to get to the Leafs. He's going to be a massive help. I just don't know. They don't have anyone like that. That's kind of why you end up 27th. There's just no blue chippers in the system outside of Nyes, who, is barely even a system guy because he's going to be a full-time NHLer next year.
Exactly. And that's where the only way that really the Leafs are going to ever improve that pipeline is when they end up trading one of their top guys and getting a bunch of prospects and picks in return in a lot of ways. And in a lot of ways, too, it also speaks to how the Leafs just aren't drafting. No, they're not having a bunch of picks to draft because they've been trying to contend and keep this contending window open for so long. Just like, I'm just trying to think of like equivalent teams like,
Pittsburgh, same thing.
Like Pittsburgh's probably the exact replica of what the Leafs have been trying to do, trying to keep the core surrounded and give them every shot as much as possible. Like, there's just not many teams that are doing it maybe on the scale that the Leafs are doing it, like currently. Like, the Leafs have really pushed every year, and Leafs haven't ever decided really to say, you know what, this year we're going to hold back and maybe we'll offload one or two guys and get some assets returned. And the Leafs aren't really, and they're losing guys without getting assets too.
Yeah, and it could happen again next year. There's two blue chip players, franchise players, by the names of Austin Matthews and William Nylander, who do need a contract next summer, or else they're walking to free agency. But that is a conversation for another day, my friend, because truly, we still do want to see something happen with one of those two guys as training camp does near. And September is right around the corner, man. It's crazy how quickly the summer has gone, and we're still waiting on a contract for both of those players. Let's try and get at least one of them locked up before training camp. Please try and get that done. All right, so 27th is what Corey Pronman ranks the Maple Leafs prospect pipeline. You can go check out the article on The Athletic. Goes a little in detail into each of the prospects there and tells you why he has them ranked so low. All right, that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcasts and platforms, including up on YouTube, and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti. Follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. Go ahead, smash that like button if you enjoyed this video, and let us know in the comments down below. Again, what do you think would make a good goal song for the Maple Leafs? We'll try and put together a bracket with the suggestions from you guys as the listeners. So let us know in the comment section or reach out to us on Twitter and give us some options to put in our bracket. That'll do it for us here today. We'll be back with another episode for you guys on Wednesday. But until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.